Good evening. We'll start the meeting. It's nice to welcome everyone here to Thorndale for our regularly scheduled meeting of the Thames Centre Council. The date is October the 7th, 2024. The time is 4:59 p.m. Actually, it just turned to 5. Thorndale Lions Community Centre at 265 Upper Queen Street in Thorndale, and I'd like to call this meeting to order. I have not been advised that there are any additions to the agenda. So if I could have a motion from council and a seconder to approve tonight's agenda. Moved by Councillor Lockie and seconded by Deputy Mayor Michelle Smybert. All in favor? Good, that motion carries. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest from the members of council? Seeing none, we'll move on to some announcements, and we got a few tonight. So first off, it's nice to be here at the Thorndale Lions Community Centre. I'm excited to share some great news for our Thorndale community as well. Starting tomorrow, we will be expanding services at this facility. From now on, a customer service assistant will be available every Tuesday to Thursday from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. to assist you with a variety of municipal services. This includes municipal payments for taxes, utilities, recreational programs, and more, booking for recreational programs, document commissioning, obtaining marriage licenses and booking civil ceremonies, lottery licensing, pickup of well test kits supplied by the Middlesex London Health Unit, blue boxes, submitting building and planning applications, and burn permits. This is all part of our commitment to making our municipal services more accessible and convenient for all our residents in Thorndale. So thank you all, and we look forward to serving you here at the community center. At this time, I would also like to acknowledge the accomplishments of one of our local Thorndale businesses and a resident, Jessica Daltrey of Franklin's Paw Spa. Jessica competed in the international dog grooming competition known as Groomania in Belgium last month. She personally won Best in Show and brought home a silver medal. In addition, she was part of a team who ended up ranked second in the world after beating the top 4 groomers from 23 different teams at the championship. Excellent job to Jessica, and Thames Centre is happy to have you right here in Thorndale, and we're very proud of your accomplishments. So if you see Jessica, support her business. Also, I would like to thank some of our amazing volunteers, mostly from the Horticultural Club in Dorchester, for their work and dedication to the Community Garden Project, and also to Director Steve McDonald, who helped manage our work schedule, for all the volunteers. All the produce grown was given to Jean Davis and the Dorchester Food Bank to assist her in supporting those in need with fresh vegetables all summer long. Through trial and error, we learned a few lessons for the next year, but all in all, it was a successful endeavor, and one we should continue into next year. It's great projects like these that make me very proud to live in our Thames Centre communities. So I think that is it in terms of announcements. So at this time, I would like to ask our municipal auditor, Christine Scrimmager, to present the audited consolidated financial statements for 23. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you so much. Am I on? Is that coming through?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Good evening. As was mentioned, I'm Christine Scrimmager. I have been the auditor for the municipality for a number of years, and I believe in your packages, you have the draft audited financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2023. They are draft at this point under Canadian auditing standards until council approves the financial statements. They are draft. Once they get approved by council, hopefully tonight, and they are dated as of tonight's date, they will then be finalized, and then the FIR, which is the reporting that goes to the province, will be completed on your behalf. So that's the process that's happened. I do have a couple of preambles to say on the financial statements because it has been a different, there's some different numbers this year than there were last year. And so I just want to comment on that. There has been a new, so municipal financial statements are prepared under what's called PISA, Public Sector Accounting Board. And so there has been a new standard that was set for 2023, and that was regarding asset retirement obligations. So a lot of words, but what that basically replaced was the old landfill accrual that we had for post-close costs. So when the landfill is finished, when it's full, then there is a capping that goes on at the end and a rehab program that has to happen in order for it to meet provincial standards. And so this new asset retirement obligation expanded that former standard by including buildings that had asbestos. For the most part, that's the main one. And so your staff have gone through those assets that are in the municipality and determined where there was some asbestos or possibility of asbestos, excuse me, and then what that would take to clean it up. And so that is now part of that accrual. So the accrual in the past for the landfill liability was just under 3 million. And then with these new assets added into it, it's approximately 3.6 million. You'll remember in your budget that you always put aside $75,000 in the budget to pay for that liability, to try and set aside some monies towards that. And in fact, the new annual amount will be around 86,000. So I just want to make council aware, not a big difference. And so this new standard has not had as major of an effect on this particular municipality as it has on many others. And the main reason for that is a lot of your buildings are fairly new. And so because of that, it's basically the buildings that were done in the 1970s that have this asbestos issue. So that's the first thing. The other thing I just wanted to comment on before we go through these is that please remember that 2022 was still had many COVID restrictions in it, and they need it to be clean. And so 2023, wow, is clearly COVID has hopefully gone. And so the note has gone from the financial statements and back to full recreation activities. And so that will show up in the expenditures when we get there. All right, so I'll go through them page by page. Please don't hesitate to ask me any questions if you have any. As I mentioned, the audit report is dated as of today's date. It is what we call in the audit world a clean audit opinion. What that means is that we have gone through your transaction cycles, your revenue cycles, your payroll cycles, and your purchase cycles. We statistically sample into each one of those. So every transaction that flows through the municipality has a chance of being picked within our statistical sample. And we have cleaned off all that. And so that is why we can now have this clean audit opinion. So I'll go through the numbers so it's my page 3 if you're following along. A consolidated statement of financial position. So this is really your balance sheet. And I'm going to highlight the major changes. If you have any further questions, as I said, please don't hesitate to ask. So the number I always go to first is that net financial assets number on the balance sheet. That's what the money that you would have in the bank at the end of the day if everyone paid you what they owed you and you paid off all of your debt. And of course, you would not be paying all your long-term debt in 1 year, but this is just a picture, a snapshot at a point in time. And you can see there's been a significant increase there of about $3 million. There's a couple reasons for that. One is the surplus that you had this year. And we'll see when we get to the notes to the financial statement, this all flows right through to the reserve increase as well. So the surplus that you had for the year has been put over to reserves, as well as the water, wastewater, and storm systems all had surpluses as well. And so those have been put over to reserves. So that's really the main increases, 1.5 million for your surplus report and just over $1 million for the water, wastewater, storm water systems. Everything below that line would have to be in place in order to provide the services you provide. And so those are your tangible capital assets. And as council will remember, at the end of last year, I issued a management letter regarding cleaning up or finishing off some of the work in progress programs that had been started. And in fact, that did happen in 2023. There's the 5.4 million of work in progress that's there for 2023 is actually the majority of that in new projects, one being the senior center. The other one is a fire truck that we have on order. So those two are the main assets within that. work in progress, and those are new for 2023. So the projects from 2022 that I commented on last year that needed to be finished have in fact been finished and are now capitalized in the assets. Coming down to an accumulated surplus at the end of the year, 155 million versus 149 million. And the majority of that increase, as I said, was both in the reserves, as I mentioned, and then as well in the tangible capital asset investment. So that's all I have to say on that statement, but I'm happy to entertain any questions that you might have.
Any questions from council for Christine? Councillor Lockie.
Yeah, through your worship, to the municipal auditor, Scrimger, with respect to the scope of the audit, can you tell us a little bit about, the scope in terms of like what percentage of the journal entries were sampled, like what percentage of the AP and AR were confirmed?
So we set materiality for the municipality. In just a second, I'm just going to pull something up here because that's why I brought this. So I don't have a percentage as say, we do it by dollar value. So we set materiality and then we, everything up to a third of materiality versus of subsequent receipts and payments we look at for the balance sheet. So are you talking balance sheet or are you talking transaction testing?
Both.
Okay, so that's that. So, and then in transaction testing, we statistically sample into 60 items for purchases and other revenue we do, and then taxation revenue. So the taxation revenue would be in the subs and the write-offs area, which is the changes to what impact returns as your return roll. As far as revenues, we look at DCs, we look at building permits, we recreation. All these guys can probably attest to all of this because we bug them a lot. And then on the purchase side, we do payroll testing and then the purchase testing as well.
Do you also review the adequacy of internal controls?
We do. And that's one of my comments at the end of this presentation is because there's been a significant change in staffing and hopefully not the roles, but the staffing, we will be doing another update this in this 2024 year that we're in now. And we're actually booked to be coming in here in the middle of November.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Lockie. If you can go ahead there
Okay.
if you want.
All right, so now we'll get to the statement of operations. So this shows your revenues and expenditures, and I have a couple comments to make on these. The budget for 2023 is the budget that council passes, and I will mention that in the expenditure side, the capital or the amortization of the capital assets is not budgeted for. And so if you look at the budget, it looks, and then compare that to the actual, it looks like you overspent by about $5 million. However, the municipal amortization for this year is 5.4 million. So in fact, you underspent once you take the amortization out. And that was one of the reasons you had a bit of a surplus. The other contributing factor to the surplus was really in the investment income. And I think that was a question that everyone had. Obviously, the rates have increased significantly from 2022 to 2023. If you think back in 2022, it's around 1%. You're earning closer to 5% in 2023. So a significant increase. And then if you look at your cash balance of $30 million, that sort of equates into what the increase is. I know that in the 2024 budget and 2025 budget, my understanding is that budget has been addressed or changed to reflect this. And again, nobody knew in we were hoping for some kind of increase obviously in 2022 when you were setting your 2023 budget, but no one knew that the increase would happen. So that's the main increase there. And then the other thing that sticks out under revenues is the other revenue, and that the budget included the full recognition of the amount that was received in donations in prior year for the senior center. And all we recognized in 2023 was the actual amount that we spent. That senior center is still in, as I mentioned in the previous statement, is in work in progress. And so until that's done, we won't be recognizing the revenue until it's totally finished. And so that's the decrease in the other revenue line there. Everything below excess of revenue over expenditures is things that relate to capital. And I remind council that we budget capital in the year that we hope that it gets finished. It doesn't always get finished in that year. And so the budget to actual isn't always comparable for that reason. A couple things happen in the government or in that total. So the 7.2 million, or sorry, the 1.7 million versus the 4.9 million. Two things really happened there. We built out one of the wastewater projects to residents. And so that was budgeted in the previous year. It actually happened in 2023. So that increased the revenue from budget. And then as well, we assumed a couple of subdivisions with about $1.5 million. So what that means is when the developers are done doing or completing the subdivisions and they start selling the houses, we then acquire those assets from those developers and they become our assets to then maintain in the future. And how that shows is we basically have to debit the capital assets and then we credit something called contributions from developers. And so that's that developer and other contributions related to capital. That's why that amount is so much higher than budget. The rest is just to deals with the progress of capital projects and what happens in any given year. That's why we break it out down below, because it's not consistent year to year. Coming down to the accumulated surplus beginning of the year and then end of year, which ties into the balance sheet. Any questions on that statement at all?
Councillor Crockett.
Through you, Your Worship. I just want to say thank you. I know that I had the opportunity to ask some questions ahead of time, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head addressing those kind of big swings and differences on the sheet in front of us. So I appreciate you bringing those forward, and thank you for your work on this.
Oh, thank you. Yes, I did see the questions, but the presentation was already set and I already had them in there because I know when I look at statements, that's basically my strength, is looking at things and going, does that make sense?
So you that jumped out. So thanks.
All in all, it's a very good news story. I will comment on one other line here. The excess of revenue over expenditures before other. So you'll see last year it was 446,000. I'm about halfway down the page. So that's really what your operating revenues cover your operating costs, and you want to see that at a break even or better position, obviously. And this year it's almost tripled actually. So that's a good sign that you're raising monies. And the reason I say that is because if you think of amortization is based on historical costs. So what a building costs now in this day and age versus what a building would have cost 30 years ago on some of your buildings, significantly different. So you want to be building up those reserves because things become more and more expensive. Government grants become less and less available. And so want to see that number positive for sure and want to see it growing, in which it is. So all that's good news. Any other questions on that?
Doesn't seem so.
Okay, I'm just going to go through the rest of it fairly quickly unless anybody has any questions. So we get to the consolidated statement of cash flows, either the increases and decreases of the non-cash items on the balance sheet. Not a lot to say here. The major numbers are around capital assets. So there's the amortization that I mentioned on the first statement of 5.3 million. The acquisition of tangible capital assets, again, 10 million. So that really took into account what was budgeted to spend in 2023, as well as finishing up those projects from 2022. And we did take out about $800,000 of new debt, and we'll see that in the debt note. The next statement just really hones into the net financial assets, which are those tangible capital assets. Again, the same numbers you just saw in the previous statement. It's just a requirement of the PSAB requirement. We then get to the notes to the financial statements, and I won't belabor this. Note number 2 just details how we came up with the asset retirement obligation and the adjustments that had to be made to bring that into the accounts. Note number 8 is your long-term debt, and that's where you see the new 880,000 of debt towards the seniors center. And then the note that I think council would be most interested in is note number 9, which is the accumulated surplus note. So you'll see there the general surplus we moved over to the reserves, as was the report from the treasurer. And here's where you see the investment in the tangible capital assets is up about 3 million, and then the reserves are up about 3 million. So that's that $6 million increase that I mentioned on the income around the balance sheet. And at the back are two schedules that are required. One is the breakdown of your tangible capital assets by type. And as you can see, your infrastructure, as you would expect, is your major asset. And that would include roads, water, wastewater. And then at the back is a segmented report, which breaks down by functions, which are the same functions that the FIR that's filed with the province has to be filed on. So this really is a segue between these audited financial statements and then what gets filed with the province. And in your package, you also have the trust fund financial statements. So this is the Dorchester Cemetery and the operations of that cemetery, and increase of about $22,000 in that. That's really where we bring in the care and maintenance fees from the sale plots, and then we pay out for any kind of grass maintenance and other maintenance. That was
All
pretty quick.
right. Thanks, Christine. It's nice to know we seem to be very heavily in the black, which is
Yes.
really nice. Any questions from council before Christine exits? Councillor Lockie.
Yeah, through your worship. Just curious if there were any recommendations made to staff regarding your findings of your audit, and if there were any post-audit adjustments made.
Yes, there's several post-audit adjustments, which you'll see, and what mainly around the tangible capital assets and the asset retirement obligations. And at this point, I want to thank Megan for all her help in getting that done. I don't think she's here tonight, but thank you for that. And then the other, I did have a couple of points that I've talked to the CAO with, and one is coming up with because of the investment income now and the size of your bank account, really, coming up with an investment policy that for perhaps earning municipal act is pretty stringent on what you can and can't invest in, but there are some vehicles that you can earn a little bit more interest on. So just looking at that. And then as well, a reserve policy. I know that's kind of in the works at the moment, sort of where if you want to consolidate some of the reserves, some of them you have to have by stipulation of the municipal act and water legislation and that kind of thing. But perhaps looking at some of those as well and just coming up with a policy on that. And again, as I said, we'll be reviewing this like the new staffing and making sure that the internal controls are still in place for 2024.
Okay. Well, if there are no questions, I'd like to thank you very much for your work, Christine. It's a pleasure to have you come out and tell us how well we're doing.
But it's great when it's in a good news story.
Yes, definitely. Okay, thanks so much.
I will need to hear the approvals, sorry.
Yes. So on that basis then, if there are no further questions, I have a motion before us that the following documents, the year ending December 31st, 2023 for the municipality of Thames Centre be approved. It's the 2023 audited consolidated financial statements and the 2023 audited trust fund financial statements. A mover and a seconder. Moved by Deputy Mayor Smybird and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Thank you. That's good. Thanks very much, Christine. Okay, we'll now move into the public meeting regarding drainage. Item 7.1 on your agenda is the meeting to consider the Elliott Drain Branch A. And if we could have Mr. DeBoss come forward and present an overview of the work. Anytime you're ready, Mike.
Good evening. This report for the branch A of the Elliott Drain is a report under Section 4 of the Drainage Act for a new municipal drain. It is the extension upstream of the drain that was built in 2011. There was a petition from a few landowners to extend the drain upstream to service a few properties that do not have access to the drain now. The drain terminates at the municipality's property and does not go up to these properties. And they were having some issues, surface water issues, and needed proper drainage to have access to the drain. We are recommending a short length of pipe, starting out at 15-inch, going to 10-inch and 8-inch. The landowners intend to do some grading on their own lands to get the water to the new drain. The new drain will continue in the same manner as the downstream drain, which is along the north side of Thorndale Road for a short distance with stubs access, PDCs, you call them, connections for the landowners to connect to with their own drainage. There will be 2 catch basins installed, one at the bottom end and one on the upstream end of the Jones driveway. We will be incorporating a stretch of existing pipe. There is an existing pipe underneath the county road ditch. What used to be a ditch was enclosed into a pipe at that time. And to save some cost, the landowners decided it was economical to use that pipe, but gain access to it and let the water use it. The lower part would be a new pipe. So we'd be replacing the older county road drain in the bottom end. And I'll open up to questions.
Okay, thank you. Are there any of the affected landowners in the room with questions they might want to ask? I don't see any. It's appropriate to anyone liking to add or remove their names to the petition? Right. Any more questions from the members of council on this drain? Looks fairly straightforward. All right, on that basis, then if there are no questions for Mr. DeVos at this point, then a mover and a seconder for the recommended motion that report number DR 010-24 prepared by the drainage superintendent dated October the 7th, 24, concerning a meeting to consider the Elliott Drain A be received for information. And that the drainage report for the Elliott Drain Branch A 2024 as prepared by Spreet Associates dated August the 30th of 24 be received and adopted, and that the first sitting of the Court of Revision on behalf of the Elliott Drain Branch A 2024 be scheduled for November the 4th of 2024. Moved by Councillor Heeman, seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? That motion carries. Okay, thanks very much, Mike. Great. Item number 8 on your agenda is the regular council meeting minutes of September the 23rd, 2024. That the minutes of the regular meeting of council be approved as circulated. A mover and a seconder. Moved by Councillor Crockett and seconded by Councillor Locker. All in favor? And motion carries. Thank you. Consent agenda. Items listed under the consent agenda are received for information in one motion. Council members may request that one or more items be separated for further action. Does anyone want to speak to any of the issues before we move on? Nope. Okay, a mover and a seconder, please, then. Moved by Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Thank you. Reports of departments. There again, before we move to the motion, anyone, any questions on any of the items under the reports of departments? Councillor Crockett.
Thank you, Your Worship. Can I roll this into 2 parts? Okay. So the first, I just want to say that we've done a lot in Thames Center recreationally over the past Q3, but I know over the past year. Furthering my comment to county at their presentation at our last meeting, I did have a conversation with Director McDonald on how to I don't know, better communicate what's going on in our community in order to highlight it, not just here, but also in the surrounding area. Because we have some pretty exciting things that are taking place, and I'm not sure whether all of that information is getting out there. So I know that we're going to kind of take that back to county and hope that we can continue on that conversation and get a bit of light shone on Thames Center. And second, I just want to say thank you to Karen and her team at the Active Living Center. They've been doing some great work. They did great work while they didn't have anywhere to go. And now in their new space, they look like they're settling right in. So thanks.
Absolutely. Okay, anything else from any other member of council? Councillor Heeman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just a comment that it looks like Travis was extra busy this summer.
Yeah.
And we appreciate that work in making sure that we have roads that aren't flooded and fields that drain. So more work to come.
Okay, thanks for that. Too bad he left the room. He didn't hear it. We'll pass it on. Okay, and in that case then, may I have a mover and a seconder that the quarterly reports for July through September of 2024, items 10.1 to 10.8 be received for information. Moved by Deputy Mayor Smybert and seconded by Councillor Lockie. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. Item number 11, reports of committees. Items listed under reports of committees are approved by council in one motion. Council members may request that one or more items be separated for further action. Is there anything that anyone wants to address? In that case, a mover and a seconder for those items. Moved by Councillor Lockie and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? That motion carries. Okay, moving on then to the mayor's report. I'm pleased to report my activities since the last report. During the month of September, in addition to my regular attendance at Middlesex County Council, Library Advisory Board, Kettle Creek Conservation Authority Board, Economic Advisory Board, I was pleased to be present for the grand opening of the Deer Ridge Conservation Area as part of my Kettle Creek Board work. The conservation area is the result of an extremely generous land donations to the Kettle Creek Conservation Authority in order to preserve this wonderful space for all to enjoy. Many members of the public were on hand, along with MP Karen Vecchio and our own MPP Minister Rob Flack. It was a beautiful day, and I would encourage anyone to take a short day trip and enjoy the trail. On Saturday, September the 14th, the Deputy Mayor and I were on hand as part of the organizing team for the second Women in Leadership Conference held at the Stone Ridge Inn in St. Thomas. It was an uplifting day with a message from our keynote speaker, Margaret Hudson, the CEO of Burnbrae Farms, and you can buy their eggs locally, by the way, a family-run business, and a wonderful conversation with a panel of speakers, all in positions of leadership. The room was full, and it was a perfect opportunity for women who are interested in any form of leadership, whether it be business, politics, or any other form of leadership. September the 18th, I was on hand in Shedden, along with our CAO, David Barrick, Communications Coordinator, Shannon Zylstra, and our MPP, Rob Flack, for the visitor of Minister of Infrastructure, the Honourable Kinga Sermon, as she made a number of funding announcements for planned infrastructure projects, including approximately $1.1 million to complete a project in Dorchester. These are badly needed funds for Ontario municipalities as we all struggle with infrastructure issues in the rush to complete our housing targets. So thank you. That's it for that report. The next one is item number 13, any unfinished business? Any notices of motion? Any new business? None? Okay, we'll move on to bylaws, item number 16 on your agenda. So a mover and a seconder that bylaw 69-2024 be given first and second reading, and that bylaws 70-2024 through 72-2024 be adopted as presented. Councillor Lockie move and seconded by Deputy Mayor Smybert. All in favor? Thank you. Motion carried. Item number 16.4, bylaw 72-2024, the confirmatory bylaw. Oh, we did. Yes, we did. Sorry. Fell asleep there. Okay, meeting schedule. Next meeting is Monday, October the 21st, I'm sorry. So say that again. Monday, October 21st, 2024 at 5 p.m. at Council Chambers in Dorchester. Again, then followed by Monday, November the 4th at 5 p.m. also in the Chambers. So that being it, may I have a motion for adjournment? Councillor Heeman and seconded by Councillor Crockett. All in favor? Thank you. And the time is 5:35 p.m.